Mr. Karan Virmani, who is CEO of WeWork India. A decade ago, I don't think so there was so much of optimism regarding co-working thing working out in India.
The startup ecosystem was booming in India. I really felt, and WeWork was doing it really well, was making the office cool.
There is a huge problem that is being solved in terms of handling the administration costs, doing the rentals, setting up the office, the furnishings.
You end up meeting partners, and you end up meeting co-founders or vendors and buyers in one space under one platform. So
How did you start that first place Galaxy of yours?
I was very young. I was about 24 years old when we really started this part of building WeWork. Standing outside IPL games and selling Nimbu Pani, but having WeWork t-shirts on and then giving out flyers and things like that in the scorching heat. Like WeWork Galaxy is kind of like where the center point of this flex revolution really kicked off. Chennai as an example would be like a 12-13,000 versus a BKC now is 40, 45, 50,000 even per desk.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Real Estate podcast. Today with us we have a very special guest, Mr. Karan Virmani, who is CEO of WeWork India. I'm very glad and delighted to host you here, and it's going to be a good session of learnings for me and expecting to take back a great amount of learnings from you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and we're glad we're doing this at a WeWork.
Definitely, I'm glad that I did experience WeWork earlier, had a day's visit to get an idea
Yeah.
because I'm having it with you. It's a very good space for someone to be in, and did talk to a lot of people, and the feedback that I got that there's a huge problem that is being solved in terms of handling the administration cost, the hurdles of doing the rentals, setting up the office, the furnishings. Then they have to find a guy for their snacks, teas and everything. It solves all the problems for them whenever there's like a team of 4-5 people. So it turns out to be way too beneficial for them.
Right. I mean, it's not just that. I think obviously we take care of all of the infrastructural hassles that come with having an office or even building a business. But more than that, I think it's the scalability for a small team, like you mentioned, who ends up growing in um, like a 4-person team will grow to 8 very easily, and to 12, and it doubles and triples quite fast. So to have some space that can grow with you when you're such a small company is challenging to find. And also, I think being in the same space as other large companies, gives some inspiration to smaller companies in how they should build their businesses, and a bit of aspirational angle to it as well. And that's, I think, the power of the community and the service level that our community teams provide to businesses, which you won't get in a traditional space. So it's layered, but yeah, the convenience and also the infrastructural hassle is, I would say, one of the biggest advantages.
Definitely. And as you said, small added advantages of networking and meeting with other people from different organizations. And it does help in a certain way to maybe enhance your way of thinking by talking to people from maybe some other sector who is sharing the office with you. I were to come to a point, let's say a decade ago, I don't think so there was so much of optimism regarding co-working thing working out in India. And you might be the one of the first few players entering this market as well. And considering this thing coming from the West, what mind thought or thought process you had, or what vision you had at that point of time, and thinking that the Indian people would welcome this concept of sharing an office with some other organization, and also having concerns and securities regarding their confidentiality of any sort of thing that they would want to have. So how did you um get that thought that we should make this happen here in India, and today you have reached to a very new, very heightened scale?
So I think I would start off by just saying that I had some experience setting up a small business in India when I came back from college, and that was my first proper entrepreneurial experience. And during that exercise, there were lots of challenges that I faced. You're right to say that there was obviously nothing like a co-working space at that point in time. There was no real infrastructure or places a small company could get an office. There was no ecosystem and anything around building a business yet. It was really very traditional sense of what an office would be like. And other than that, I was entering our family business as like a newcomer and the next gen. So I wanted to always try to do something a bit different than what we were doing already and try to create some niche of my own within a larger family business. And I'm fortunate enough that I was able to be have the freedom to do that. um the real thought process was started off by thinking that in our larger office buildings, office parks, if we could have a small space that was really for startups or smaller businesses. And at the origination of the idea was actually like giving out space for equity in
You have
smaller
you have a
companies.
tagline equity for all.
Sorry?
You have a tagline equity for all.
Yeah, but that's a Women's Day. That's our Women's Day slogan, which is part
Asa,
of International Women's Day this year. I think was, uh, equity over equality, which
okay.
means having actually like a
I took it
seat
the
at the
wrong way, I
table.
think.
Right. So yeah, we have a T-shirt that says "Equity for All," but that's largely was for Women's Day. Um, so that's how the actual idea started. It then slowly evolved to realizing that, or thinking that India is such a young population, extremely young workforce. The startup ecosystem was booming in India, and there wasn't anyone catering to the smaller mid-sized businesses from a real estate perspective. The other thing that I really felt, and WeWork was doing it really well, was making the office cool. So for anyone my age at that time, I was 24 and I was really starting. And I think for now, future generations that you see, if they want something more from the office than what existed in the traditional sense, which were these cubicles of death, no one speaking to each other. There was, not, you should just come sit at your desk and leave at 6 p.m. versus having an environment that is well designed, that you feel good about coming to every day, where you can meet people outside of what you're doing also. And those interactions and that network enhances how fast and how much more you can actually grow your business. You end up meeting partners and you end up meeting co-founders or vendors and buyers in one space under one platform. So um, looking at how India was going to grow, looking at how young India's population was, and looking at what existed from an office space infrastructure perspective earlier, I thought there was a definite opportunity to like reimagine and rethink that. And so then we were left with two options, like should we do it ourselves or should we partner with someone, or like do the partnership with WeWork. And I think WeWork was hitting everything that we wanted to build,
Okay.
with the added advantage that it was a global network. There was a global community of businesses that our members could really tap into. And that's kind of how the partnership of with WeWork started. And yeah, so we're here 7 years later.
So how is the model of partnership with Viva Global?
It's so WeWork India was is the first ever licensed region, or like a franchise agreement with WeWork Global. So Embassy, our parent business, and my family business, we created the partnership in 2016, 2017 with WeWork, where we own the business, but we license the brand and its IP and technology and stuff like that. Yeah, we basically using that to build it out, and it connects us to all of the other WeWork locations around the world.
I want to know about your starting phase, like once this decision was taken and like that was confirmed that you'll partnership with the WeWork Global and come to India on a franchisee model and build this thing. How did you start that first place Galaxy of yours, and how was the team like then?
It started, I mean, with a lot of excitement. I think that if I have to think of like one word to describe, that period of time, I was very young. I was about 24 years old when, when we really started this part of building WeWork. And the early team was just really me, bringing in lot of friends, a lot of people who were also excited by the idea. Some people, some younger folks from our parent business who wanted to try something new and were getting, a little bit caught in the web of a traditional business. This was like a nice, exciting opportunity. And I would say there was a lot of like excitement, but also a lot of naivety and
Nervousness?
not really nervousness. It was 100% excitement, but not fully realizing, the kind of journey that we were going to embark on, what it would mean, disrupting something like real estate, which has been the same for the last 30, 40 years before that. Facing all these landlords that were much, much older than me, who I had to explain the concept to, had to gain a lot of trust, get them to take a bet on what we were doing. Um, and build a company with its own separate culture and a very very new uh disruptive business within real estate. So it was like I said, extremely exciting. Lots of failure, lots of things we tried and failed. In the initial days when we were launching Galaxy, we literally tried every I would call it like guerrilla sales strategies to figure out how we get gonna get the name out. So we did things like standing outside IPL games and selling Nimbu Pani, but having WeWork T-shirts on and then giving out flyers and things like that in the scorching heat. We used to go to all these startup events, just wearing our WeWork T-shirts, make lots of noise, get lots of attention, and everyone be like, "Who are these guys?" We used to go to like certain competitors' workspaces and just blatantly try to pull members from there. We've tried everything till we finally sort of understood what's working, which are the pockets, which are the funnels that work for us. Um, and that's been built over time. Galaxy, from a construction standpoint and an actual delivery standpoint, we were delayed at least 3 times. What we thought was going to be the opening till what we finally opened, we had to move it, around 3 times. Even till that last day, I remember it was like a Sunday, and then Monday we were opening, and then the Sunday morning we were doing our puja of the building, and during that time we asked the workers to just stop working for like a period of 1 hour. In that 1 hour, every single laborer from the site left and went drinking and never came back. So the night before we were going to open, it was our entire first founding team, 35 of us, actually finishing the site, lifting sofas from like 2 basements, all the way to like 6, 7 floors on staircases. My friends actually came to congratulate me that night, and we just they ended up staying till like 3 in the morning, helping us lift these huge sets of tables. If you've ever been to Galaxy and been to some of our conference rooms, you'll see that those tables are like one solid wood block. They're almost like 100 kg blocks of solid wood that we had to carry up escalators. There were fights that happened. There were so many things that happened in that period of just 3 months of launching it. But that culture of hustling was a little bit built in the people that we had got on board at that time. So when we opened on that Monday, when we somehow kind of scrapped everything together, and I'm sure from a member perspective, there were so many things wrong with it comparatively to like an opening that we're doing, right now. We're still dealing with a lot of problems with Galaxy because of that opening, which we've tried to correct and all of that over time. But soon as Monday happened and the doors opened and members came in and they saw what a WeWork space was, that's when everything like completely changed. And I think today Galaxy still is like a landmark, one in the startup space, but definitely anyone in the commercial office or co-working space knows like WeWork Galaxy is kind of like where the center point of, this flex revolution really like kicked off. Because when you walk into that space and you see the atrium and, the types of companies that we had over there, in the first 3 months, we signed companies like Microsoft and Amazon in that space, which was unheard of in flex spaces globally. Even like enterprise companies using, co-working or a flex space. So from there, it was, like now just hold on to the
Pace and
just hold on to the reins and like enjoy the ride, like just ride this wave. So yeah, that was like the start of everything.
You did a very traditional approach of like having Nimbuvani stalls with like wearing the WeWork t-shirts and like shouting at various events and all. You were from a well-to-do family, and like at that point of time, it didn't seem more feasible to like do a proper marketing strategy like with billboards and
We did everything. We did billboards. We had hoardings. We did all the sophisticated stuff also, but we were just so excited to have that, wanting to have it open at 100%.
right.
That we were trying to like, really like pull everything. And I remember that maybe 40 till 45 days before opening, we actually didn't even have, really one sale done. No, we had very few sales done. Because everyone was coming and just seeing that it's a construction site and no one could really visualize, what it was going to be, because there's no, just imagine walking into WeWork now. It was like a first time thing. But like 30 days before something, switched, or this momentum kicked off, and then we ended up opening, I think, at like around 40 or 45% occupancy. So not the 100% that we wanted, but within like 60 days, it was fully filled. I remember the first month or so since it opened, it was like a tourist attraction. People used to just come, just walk in, just to see. And our sales team would just be standing there doing batches of tours, literally showing WeWork around. Not even the people who, I don't think anyone was really going to take space. They just wanted to see what the hell this was. Yeah, so it was literally like a tourist. It was like a museum situation.
New amusement park came out in the city.
Yeah, it was that. It was all types of people who just land up, and we were running all these crazy ads and all of that also. So people would just show up.
Aware of your fast paced growth after the opening of the Galaxy, like within end of the year, you are like 3 locations, and like the fourth, you have been like 5x growth in the second year. So how were you able to manage that? And also like it would take certain time to recover the cost that might have went in, let's say, in building the first WeWork at Galaxy. And I feel it might take good amount of months or maybe a years to recover what goes into building one location. And even before witnessing that profitability or that return from that first investment, how are you so confident that this will go for long and were able to aggressively pursue the next locations?
So when we set up the partnership itself, we already had like a 5-year plan. It was not like a one by one. We had like a rollout plan that we had agreed as part of the partnership. So
with WeWork Global.
With WeWork. So we already knew, when we opened Galaxy, we already had the 3 other locations fully signed up. So they had to open, and we had already had those signed leases. And then each year we had this growth plan that we wanted to hit. So we were just like full-fledged, going for that. The confidence we got obviously was that, WeWork was a concept that has already was working in the US. WeWork Global also was expanding across different markets in the world, and the demand was crazy, the excitement was crazy. It still continues to be that. So we were always actually too slow to bring on new space. The kind of demand that we were seeing was like, crazy, that we could keep launching new locations, and it was just getting really like
The
filled up.
demand was that the supply wasn't there, and
Yeah,
you
like we had to really figure out our execution from a supply perspective more than the demand thing, because tomorrow like someone would come in for a tour and could take 50 desks like just over the next day. But for us to build those 500,000 desks would take us like 6-8 months to build. So there was so much pipeline that we had that we just kept opening. And I would say it was like a combination of that and just like I mentioned, I was naive. I wasn't so sophisticated as US 20 to even think like, what are my ROCs on a Galaxy? Only once it gets to this level, I should open the next one. And, none of that stuff was even in my head. It was, let's disrupt something, let's create something new, let's go as fast as possible. And like I said, I was, I was fortunate that like I didn't have to like go out to raise money. I mean, our parent business, was funding a lot of it because we had this plan and we understood that, that the business would be valued in a particular way. And that's how we were like looking at it. And we were very convinced with our thesis and our thought process that this is going to change the way India works. So as soon as that clicked for us, which was with Galaxy and with all of the demand coming in, and then the second location which we opened, which was BKC in Bombay, was another like huge moment, like in the entire commercial real estate, but definitely the flex space, which was one full tower bang in the middle of BKC, like huge signage, 16-floor building. Like who are these guys? What the hell is going on? Like what is WeWork? So I think those few bold, big steps and actually created the big momentum. And then it was,
I feel whatever plan you had comes from a very mature mind in terms of having a foolproof plan and having a very way forward thinking what would happen down the line. And it comes back to, when did you start attending office with your dad?
So I set up my first business at 19, right? I used to go to the office with my dad, pretty much like every summer break, I would say since I was like in 11th or 12th. So I would spend some time, like not like a permanent amount of time, but at least 1-2 months whenever I had break. And then when I was 19, I set up my first business. It was separate from my.
What was that
It
business?
was a hospitality. It is a hospitality business. We still continue to operate like a few restaurants and a catering business.
So you started that at 19. The
That-
Sanchez.
Sorry, yeah, Sanchez Sriracha was the first ones, and then since then we have Hops House. We have a catering business called Zest. It's not like a big business, but we
Passion project.
Yeah, but it's passion, but it's also been sustaining. Now we just finished 10 years, of operations this year, and it's still one of it still makes decent amount of money, and it's not scaled like anything crazy, but it taught me a lot in those early days. So 19 is when I started that, and then by the time I was 22, I would say 21, 22 is when I joined my dad. And there I spent about 2.5 years literally just listening to meetings and
I went through that thing,
Yeah.
and it kind of wanting to put it out there that doing that thing kind of trains your mind in certain way and
100%.
brings in your maturity earlier. I feel.
Yeah, not just maturity. I think like it gets you used to being in rooms with, really elder, sophisticated people. It teaches you how to handle personal people relationships, which is really what, running a business is. 90% of the time, you're just doing that, which is figuring out how to manage, motivate, inspire people. Uh, and I would say those 2.5 years was one of the, biggest learning experiences. No college, school, or whatever could ever teach me what I learned in those two and a
So
half
it's
years.
purely practical experience in
Yeah,
making you who you are.
yeah, 100%. I mean, it was, 2.5 years, and then I've been building WeWork for like almost 8 years now. So it was a start, like helped me during that initial this thing, and a lot of the stuff I still have built on top of what I learned over the last 7 years. But yeah, I've been sort of a little bit away from, the family business for that long also from on a day-to-day perspective. So I think over last few years I've also just learned a lot and built, my own style. But it was a big foundation to being an entrepreneur for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It something that really wanting to know that at the age of around like 22, 24, you were able to execute and make up restaurants and which were fully operational, getting you good amount of money today also. You're planning to scale those restaurants or anything in future?
Yeah, I mean, we just actually opened uh, two new outlets in Manyata just last month, this month actually. Um, and our catering business is actually scaling quite a lot. We started off doing very small bespoke events. We just did a large wedding over the weekend. We've done almost like a 10,000 person event, as well, part of the catering business. It's like a huge gap in the market. There's no one or just like one or two players who basically monopolize this space. And we've been able to come and disrupt it and actually become the most preferred caterer, at least in Bangalore. Now I want to start looking at other markets, other cities with that. I prefer that business over the restaurant business just because it's like much higher margin and and more variable cost. Um, but F&B business is really tough. It's very tough to keep relevance over such a long period of time because there's always so many new things coming up. And keeping quality and also keeping quality of your manpower standard for almost a decade is also it's quite challenging.
How are you managing so many different businesses, different verticals? Like WeWork is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Catering is a complete different. Restaurants are different.
So I spend like 98% of my time at WeWork. I have a partner at the restaurant business who started it with me, Siddharth. He runs and manages it on the day to day. Um, I spend a good amount of time with him and with the leadership team over there. But look, at the end of the day, I think it's all about having good people. Even with so many things that we have going on at WeWork, it's not like everything is on me. Like I have a great leadership team. We have a great second layer below the leadership team also that is maturing quite well. So having great people and a good culture can allow you to do so
How
many more things.
how do you form that leadership hierarchy, or how do you select the people you want in your team? Are they like you are a quite young leader, so do you prefer young people in your team? You prefer trained people in your team, or you are fine with having a person with a good mindset and train them?
I think different stages call for different, types of people. In our earlier days when we were first starting up, it was, just like hustlers, really young people I would like to work with. I resonated with people who can wear many hats and are really not yet masters of any. You just want people who will be able to do everything and pull things around. I think as we've slowly grown the business, or while growing the business also, I used to interview every single person that we hired till we were about maybe 350, 400 people. And my interview was just meant to be from a culture perspective. Like, does this person have the values that are, common values that I have, or that, the founding team has? Um, are they people who look positively? Are they entrepreneurial? Will they do the right thing? We have, certain values that we hire based on. I hired and made lots of mistakes hiring people with big degrees and come from fancy schools who didn't meet the culture. They never lasted long. All the people that are with me right now, have been with me, are, I would say, 90% because they fit the culture more than their capability and, like expertise that they've had, or past track record, or diplomas, or MBAs, or whatever it is. So I think hiring for culture is super important. Identifying or identifying people who believe in your mission and believe in what you're trying to build is really important. Um, only comes with making experience of making mistakes also. Like, you slowly start figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then you get really good at it. And then you slowly get good at it, and also can build a framework then that other managers and teams can hire also based on that, right? Like, so originally just started off with how we used to interview. Then we started putting down a list of questions that, we said that everyone needs to ask. Then it became like having a technical round and then a culture round. The culture round, you have to match all of the values that we have, or at least some of the values to hire, no matter what qualification, diploma, all of that you come with. And then so over time, that just becomes like the organization's culture, and everyone feels kind of the same way, and everyone acts in a similar way.
What kind of culture do you wish to make, or you have made here at WeWork?
I think that we are, extremely innovative, entrepreneurial, and resilient company. We really try to build and hire people that match a lot, like those three things. And Yeah, I would say that our culture is just that. Like, we overachieve. We are very ambitious, very entrepreneurial, and we think of like extremely innovative ways of how to do things. It's never about following what is happening, but figuring out our path of, figuring out our niche in the space.
Got it. You are having different locations in like 7, 8 cities in India.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have people working in those cities, or how does your model operate? Like, majorly everyone working in Bangalore.
So we have building teams across all of our buildings. So every location, has like 4 or 5 people. Our community team, which is really like the heart and soul of WeWork, and heart and soul of why members like using our spaces, because they give you such a great experience. We have, I would say, Bangalore being our headquarters, where most of our operations is run. A lot of our corporate teams sit out of here, but we also have smaller teams in Bombay and in Gurgaon. That those were like our first 3 markets. Like, Bangalore, Bombay, Gurgaon are our biggest markets, and so we have real estate teams over there. We have certain projects teams over there. We obviously have our sales teams, in each of these markets. So it's really dispersed, but I would say Bangalore and Bombay are the biggest headquarters, and that's
Now, each city has a different culture, different vibe, and whenever you make an office, plan an office, do you have to change your blueprint of making that office suiting that particular city?
yeah. We try to localize as much as possible. I think um we keep 80% standardization so that when you walk into a WeWork anywhere in India or really in the world, you know that it's a WeWork immediately. You get that feeling, the vibe, the way the space is laid out, the colors, the types of spaces that we have, those are all very much standardized. But we try to localize a lot depending on the micro market, the city. Uh, so if you we just opened Chennai as a new location there. We've fully like inspired by you know Tamil Nadu architecture. We paid homage to like the fishermen's in Chennai. We have these light fixtures that look like fishermen boats. We've used certain material which is sort of prevalent in these old Chennai homes, the courtyards and the terracotta tiles and lots of things like that we try to localize. So I would say a 80-20 mix because it gives us some connection to the people
Definitely.
from there.
So, and each of these locations have a different real estate price in terms of the area that WeWork
Yeah.
leases out from the developer or the landlord. So, does that pricing influence the pricing of the members?
Yeah. It's like the building and taking the warm shell rent is our raw material. So everything is based on that. That is like our largest cost really. So it's our rent, it's our OpEx or like I would say rent, the CapEx that we put into it, our operational expense on top of that. And then whatever margin that we make, that's how the stack is to the member. Um, and depending on the micro market, depending on the rentals in that micro market, our prices vary. So Chennai, as an example, would be like a 12,000-13,000
For a
price
month.
point per month per desk, versus a BKC now is like 40, 45, 50,000 even per desk. But that is just a reflection of what the rentals are in
Does that
BKC.
affect the profitability of that location at WeWork? Like, if the price at BKC is high, does that get you more money?
Yeah, the margins are higher, but it's also more difficult to sell because
It's
it's
expensive,
more expensive.
right?
Lower price, you'll have a higher sales velocity, but maybe a lower margin. A higher price building,
Kind of balances out in the end.
you have higher margins. From a percentage standpoint, I would say like our buildings, pretty much operate in that same like 25 to 35% margin uh, range. But when you apply that to the higher desk price, obviously, we're making like absolute terms, we're making more money in the higher price locations.
And let's say you make a WeWork area of like 10,000 square feet. So you have any math like these many desks will be there in terms of that much area of
Yeah.
square feet.
So it's a density. So what do we really do, right? Like we lease real estate and wholesale. So we take a huge amount of space. We use design to creatively make the space have everything that you would need, but build some density in so that we can break it up into smaller offices and actually sell it to multiple companies. So we're like buying wholesale, using design and then selling retail. And so we have a density measure that we look at. So per square foot or per desk is around like 65 square foot on rentable, on like chargeable space. And that's how we kind of break up the density. So like 10,000 square foot would be whatever, like 65 people, right? Yeah.
normally how much percent occupancy is like good for WeWork in terms of revenue?
Over time have become more and more efficient. I think prior to COVID, our break-even occupancy was like close to about 70 to 73%, which
So
means you'd
at
have
any
to.
point of time, this much.
Yeah, but now after, we've grown and operational efficiencies kicked in, it's actually closer to 50% now. So anytime the portfolios cross 50%, we're pretty much making
Overall,
money.
the average of all the
Yeah,
locations is
yeah.
more than
But
50.
even at a center level, it kind of is working out to, around 50-55%.
Got it. I'll divert a little bit into your personal life.
Sure.
So, do you have any means of like continuous learning, upgrading yourself in terms of leadership or time management? Or what are your core areas of interest to upgrade yourself on daily basis?
I think first I would say like health wise, I'm always, I keep a good amount of time like in the day, which is around just wellness and whether it's a workout or, like some recovery type of rituals, like just, doing like a sauna or ice bath now. A lot of, like at least 3-4 times a week I'm in the ice bath. But, yeah, so I would say constantly trying to like better health, fitness, learn a new sport. I'm now like learning tennis, which I just started a few months back, which is like just another better way for me to like do my cardio, but and also like learn something new, which I think will stay with me for life and can always use it. Um, from a leadership standpoint, I actually used an executive coach for the last 4 years. So it's almost like a therapist, leadership coach. We do these one-on-one sessions with her, like once, we was doing it at least like twice a month. Um, and that it really was very, very helpful in me developing as a leader and learning how to manage my teams. So it's, somewhere where you can just like complete separated third person just go and talk to about how I'm dealing with things, how I feel about dealing with certain things, employee conflict, personal life stuff, all of that as well. And and I would say like the biggest learning comes from just doing for me. So every day,
Experience.
every experience, every new thing that we've gone through, every mistake that I've made, I try to like take it in my stride as much as possible. And, there's no mistakes, only learnings. I think that's something that we built in the culture of WeWork as well. And, yeah, so I'm forced to keep improving myself because the scale of everything is growing so much. What's at stake is growing so much. Um, and then finally now I think I'm learning a lot from like just being married and having a baby and like doing a lot of the personal like family stuff. That's a very different type of learning also that's
So
happening.
many things are going at a particular point of time. Do you ever feel like you're being little late or not? I didn't mean to say late, but it's very hard to keep up with the pace of how everything else is moving.
I'm firstly definitely very late. In my head, my plan was to have completed a lot of things by the time I was 30. Now I'm almost like 30. I'll be 33 in a few months. So my timeline has moved to like milestone has been like by 35 I have to do X, Y, and Z.
Like what? You think
So
you
many things I would have loved to have already, grown the business to a certain size. I, would have loved to have listed the business by now. If COVID hadn't come,
yeah,
maybe there was, so many other things that could have, like, we would have been in a different trajectory. I don't know. But I'm always hard on myself that way. Like, I feel like I'm always too late. I don't feel like there's too much happening, to be honest, but because like I mentioned, there's, one, I have a great team and a lot of people around me. So everything's just kind of moving. And if I list it out, it seems like a lot, but it's not like on a daily basis it's taking up that much of my mind space.
You have the team structure to take care,
Yeah,
and
I
like
actually have quite a good work-life balance in that sense, I would say, where I'm able to go on holiday and, you know, uh, work from home someday if I want to and all of that, and still be able to grow the business at this pace and this speed. Um, but also I just enjoy it. I'm having so much fun that it's not. I mean, it's just life for me. It's like what I really always wanted my life to be.
so. People go through this phase where like there comes a point in the business too where you continuously work for 24 hours 7 days a week to make it to reach a certain milestone, and then thereafter there comes a little bit of relief when you get that personal life. Is that the thing you have witnessed and that happens with everyone out there, or you think there can be a work life balance from the day one?
I think that no, I think that there is obviously periods of time. Firstly, I like what work-life balance is to me is, like it's a very flawed concept in itself. At least when you're building a business and running a business, it's like your work is your life and your life is your work, and there's no real line between it. You kind of have to find a way where it's as integrated as possible. So you're not ever thinking that you need to switch one off and then start another one. They both have to be operating in parallel, and you have to have that balance, figure out that balance. I would say before, when I was much younger and, like didn't have family and all of that, my 98% focus was building this business and, work, work, work. And I used to do the 12 hours and used to travel 3 cities in one day to see buildings, start at like 4 in the morning, land back in Bangalore at like 11 in the night, do interviews from like 6 in the morning till like 2 a.m. at night. I didn't really have time for anything except building the business. Over time that changed. You have teams, business got more stable. We went through life and like death situations, survived the death situations. Now I'm in a comfortable place, so you can, ease off a little bit from feeling that you need to be on that level all of the time. Um, so yeah, I think that it's not about work-life balance. It's just like how is this your identity or not? Like your company really has to become your identity if you want it to be you and you want to grow, long like your work and your personal life all needs to become one.
Your life depends on the phase of the business in which you are in, I would say.
Yeah, like every phase needs something very different, right? Like today, let's say, 4 or 5 years back, I would have to make 100 decisions in a week that I personally had to put my mind power and work at. Today, I might have to make 10 decisions in the week, but those 10 decisions are, profoundly more impactful than any of the 100 decisions I made during that time. But there's someone else to do the 100 decisions, and I get to, focus on those 10 decisions. So as long as I just make 10 right decisions in the week, the entire company, is on track and things will be fine. But if I make one wrong decision out of those 10, um, it'll have some impact. So you can't be in a mind state where you're so stressed and bogged down and tired and all of this stuff, because you will definitely make a wrong decision at like this high level.
Understood.
Yeah.
How did this process happen? It just happens with time, as in when you grow off, like coming down from 100 to 10 decisions,
Yeah.
where these 10 are the major ones that
I don't
actually.
think like I really even realize it. Like until I'm sitting in this podcast and like talking about it, it's not something that occurs. It's just
Happens on its
yeah.
own.
It's like like you growing up as a person itself. Only after when you're like whatever 20, you realize what an idiot you were when you were 15 and all the stupid stuff that you did and how different you are now. But that's because of all the experiences you went through from 15 to 20. And when you're 25, you look at yourself and you'll say, a similar thing like, these are all the things I did right. These are all the things I did wrong. I don't need to be doing these things anymore. I want to do only these things. So that's how a company also, I think, grows.
I sorry, but I'll again come back to the WeWork, where I want to touch upon the technology part of it
Right.
on both the terms in terms of operational efficiency for the company, for the team, and on the other side to the user experience technology part of it.
So I'll start from our internal teams. I think in the real estate space, we are probably like the highest adopters of technology in the way that we operate, all the way from sourcing our buildings to designing it, to our tools for construction management, and data, like how we look at data and act and build our strategy around data, and also now slowly some automation. That being said, we're still very, very far away if you like compared us to an actual tech company. We do use technology a lot, but um, I wouldn't say that we're like at a state that is anywhere close to 70-80% of where I would want to be. We are now starting to build that capability. We've just built a small engineering team, at WeWork that is solving for our internal requirements as well as building some stuff for our members. We've been very dependent on our global teams for technology because common app for members and systems that help us manage global accounts and the business globally needed to be common. But over the last few, like maybe last 2 years, we've tried to really go on a journey of trying to build something better. From a user perspective, again, I think like our app is the main out like main just the main vehicle in which we are able to connect the user experience, like the experience of using the space with the member and allow people to book and meet people and come for events and all of that stuff. Um, that also I think is still way ahead of anyone else in the market, but it's been a global rollout and something that our Weaver global teams have worked on. Um, there's so much more I think that we are going to do over the next few months and years, where I feel that your office space and just like everything else, you're going to need a technology interface to make the user experience like a lot better, and we want to just figure out how to use technology to enhance the experience of not just you using the space, but can I use it in a way that actually helps making you build your business a lot easier and a lot better.
Talking about being dependent on WeWork Global for the technology,
Yeah.
do you ever feel that that acts as a hindrance to you someday, or you can develop your own technology and start using it?
I would say that, in the early days or as we were scaling, it was a huge advantage because we didn't have to build anything. It was something that was already available. It gave us like a global ability to connect, at a global level, our members to have a unified experience across the world. It helped us to manage and also be connected into like a global sales engine. As we've become so big, and I think as India itself has changed from a technology landscape so much, like the India stack that is available for us to tap into, payments have changed so much. Other services that you use in your day-to-day life are using technology in such a drastic way. You have AI, that is coming in some way, shape, or form. We have local products and local services that we wish to like sell to our members that don't exist in other parts of the world. So I think as we've gone now to a much larger scale, there is a need for us to have control and build our own technology. Uh, and speed, right? Like you want to be able to do things quicker when you're part of like a global uh, architecture. It becomes very hard to make changes very rapidly and things like that. So yeah, I think it's been a progression again, right?
So with time, you will be able to do according to your
So we're
requirements.
already doing a lot, like from an internal perspective. We've built so much stuff. We're using different technologies that global doesn't necessarily use. Um, so it's a mix. It's just from a customer standpoint because it needs to be like a very uniform experience no matter where you go in the world. That it's a little bit it's gonna be take a little bit more time to progress into something that we want, but yeah, over time.
How does it feel to you at like this stage? I feel you have achieved a good amount of things by now. There is obviously more.
When you come from a family which is like
Already
the
achieved.
business is already so big that until you've like crossed that, you've not really achieved anything.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Honestly, I just don't think about it like that. We just have a long way to go, and every day we come in, there's like just a feeling of like so much more potential that it still feels like you're at the start of the journey. Once you know that the business is financially like very stable and independent, that's like a big next milestone, I would say. Oh, after you.
No.
But yeah, so it's that I would love to get to like 500,000 desks, million desks.
Right now you're like 100,000.
Yeah, we're just about close on 100,000. So again, long way to go. I think that from a profitability standpoint, would love to get to like 1,000 crore EBITDA mark in the next few years. So that's there.
In like one of your podcasts, you like said like in about like 3 years time period, you'll be able to reach $1 billion revenue.
Yeah, I think 3 to 5 years, hopefully. That's a
huge milestone.
Yeah, the only thing that $1 billion keeps increasing because the dollar keeps going up. So when I started on this journey when I was like 24 or 7 years
7,000.
back, dollar was $65. So you had to get to 6,500 crores to hit
Now
$1 billion.
it's like 83,
Now it's
85.
already 8,500. By the time another 3 years goes, it'll be 10,000. So that number is never,
But I
it's
feel
never like an achievable number.
But you have a growth of like 30-40% year on year, so you'll be able to achieve. I feel
We'll see.
might increase a timeline by 6 months.
I think with size, like again, the market is growing so fast that we hope that we'll get there as soon as possible. But again, it's not what we're driving decisions based on. We're focused a lot on our product, on what we're doing for our members and stuff like that. Yeah.
Your team is very young. That's
Yeah, we
True.
have an average age, I think, of the team is about 29, 30. No, 31, I think.
you have hired people older than you.
Yeah, my entire leadership team is older than me. I mean,
what-
while I was building the business, everyone was pretty much older than me, except like a few people.
How was that time dealing with them? Because I do face something like that.
That, in my early days, was always the biggest
Challenge?
Yeah, biggest challenge because it's just that, no, you feel like you're just some kid who doesn't really know anything. What are you gonna tell someone? You can tell from the way that they are talking to you, looking at you, that they're also like, what does this kid know? I'm gonna do everything anyway. When I had to deal with landlords also who are much older and much more accomplished, much more this, it was a challenge. But I think the biggest thing I realized is that if you're bringing value to the conversation, people are willing to really listen no matter what your age is. And slowly that age just becomes, a number that you don't really think about on a day-to-day when you're building the business. So yeah, as long as you're bringing value to the business,
Age doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. bringing value to the meeting. You're making, you've come prepared. You know your stuff. It becomes very hard for anyone to challenge that part.
Coming to sustainability part of WeWork, I got to know that you all adopted a lake.
Yeah.
What was that all about, and why? What made you to have that thought to, like, it was like kind of giving rebirth to that lake, right?
So actually, I think in 2019, we re-looked at a lot of our values as a business. We wanted to really rethink what we kind of understood, like what we identified ourselves as. And one of the biggest changes we made is that we brought um, be sustainable into our value, right? And that's something that we wanted to go after from a sustainability standpoint. Make that like our impact initiative over a long period of time. So how we've thought about it is in two ways. One is the impact that we can make from our operations, our buildings, which really revolves around waste management, energy, water, saving water, renewable energy, using renewable sources to power our buildings. And the other initiative was protection of biodiversity, which is a huge contributor to the climate crisis. So the adoption of the lake was us finding like a real way where we put money into something that we know that we can physically like properly make an impact against, and transform like something small in a very small way, see if it works, and then keep extending that, hopefully over bigger and bigger projects. So today, since we've rejuvenated the lake, I think some almost 232 odd species have, been found back in it through like between fish and birds and other animals and stuff like that who survive based on the ecosystem of the lake. And now we're looking at other newer such lakes in around North Bangalore that we can do a similar.
You have done one more initiative in Bombay.
Yeah, we did a project with the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, the Living with Leopards project. Again, protection of that biodiversity or the man-animal conflict. In Powai and those areas, there's a lot of leopards that encroach in, or like humans have actually encroached into leopard territory, and hence cause a lot of conflict. So we did a project with them to help with camera traps and tracking and some fencing and all of that as well, which hopefully mitigates a lot of those.
Coming to sustainability in terms of office,
Yeah.
how does WeWork ensure that?
So, I mean, something simple if you see, like we do waste segregation. So we really, we published 5 large goals last year that we wanted to achieve from a sustainability standpoint. One was moving to 100% renewable energy by 2027. It was reducing our water consumption per member to 20 liters per member per day, which is around like 30 or 40 liters
Right now.
today. We spoke about reducing our energy consumption by about 20%. We've want to move 90% of our waste away from landfills by 2027, and I think move to 100% renewable energy across all of our buildings. So there are these 4-5 goals that we've published, and so we do small things like that. Like you can see the waste segregation here. You'll see all of our taps in all of our locations have water aerators that help save water. A lot of our buildings we've moved already to green power.
How, like mainly solar or?
Yeah, either buying solar from third parties
Okay.
and the grid, or pushing the landlord to provide solar in that building as a source of power. Rooftop solar is something that we're also exploring to help do that, and even smaller things like air quality for members, putting better filters and better systems in HVAC so it reduces the energy costs. We also have a building management system that uses machine learning and AI to control how airflow and all of that is working through the building so that
That's
it cuts.
third party or in-house?
It's a third party tool. We
Okay.
use Schneider to help us do that right now, and another tool called 75F that helps us, manage and monitor a
Got
lot
it.
of this stuff.
So coming to a little end, you
Yeah.
are a guy born and brought up in Bangalore,
Yeah,
and I'm a guy born and brought up in Bombay.
yeah.
So I would like to have an exchange of ideas in terms of living in Bangalore and living in Bombay. I would like you to bring up questions.
To bring up, so my wife's from Bombay, and I
Ah.
spend a lot of time in Bombay, so I have a good, I think, understanding and a mix of both. But I would say, Bangalore is a much younger, newer city. It is a lot of people have migrated into the city from smaller towns, and because it's so driven by startups and technology, I think the mindset of people is like a lot more open and maybe less traditional than a place like Bombay. And there's also a lot of newer money. People have made their wealth here in Bangalore mostly from professional setups like growing in a large multinational corporate or a startup or something like that, versus Bombay is much more industrial, much more old money. Generational wealth has been passed down a lot in Bombay
Right.
than Bangalore. The city also, like infrastructure wise, size wise, is vastly different, and that has its impact on how people think about business, how people think about life. I think here you have more nuclear families, newer families, whereas in Bombay it's still very much a joint family, type of environment. And I think the other thing here is obviously weather. Being outdoors is like a huge part of growing up in Bangalore, which
Yes.
is not as much in a city like Bombay,
Bombay.
I feel. People in Bombay like being in the core of the city, don't mind paying like, crazy exorbitant prices for housing, as long as they're in the heart of the city. Bangaloreans would much rather live slightly outside the city but get more space.
Yes.
And homes are,
Bigger.
larger, and being outdoors, like I said, or having space that you can enjoy the weather is like a big part of, how people live here. So you can maybe tell me about Bombay.
Bombay, as far as I have seen, it's much more fast-paced life in Bombay compared to Bangalore. Bangalore seems quiet,
Yeah.
seems peaceful, calm. But it's like you're in Bombay, it feels like you are in a rush of a race, always trying
Yeah.
to like make something, do something, like. And it is more like it is said by people that like Bombay is like a city of dreams, or like people come, like more people migrate to Bombay compared to Bangalore, considering the pool of opportunities that people would get in Mumbai in comparison to Bangalore, because that kind of jugaad thing, that is much more possible in Bombay
Yeah.
because of I feel Bangalore is much more the kind of population it has is much more educated compared to Bombay.
Yeah.
So that jugaad thing won't work as much as it would work in
Yeah.
Mumbai. So kind of if
Yeah, I think from a work perspective, Bombay attracts people who are more creative, who want to be in finance, in media, a lot more more industrial from
Yes.
that sense. Bangalore is really driven by the IT companies mostly.
Amazon.
Yeah, like if you want to work
Microsoft.
at like one of the, big tech companies, or you want to start up,
Or
this
tech-
is like
tech-
the place to be, because you
Definitely.
can hire CTOs and talents and developers, so easily. Uh, and like you said, the type of life is also a little more slow paced, and uh, it's Bangalore used to have this slogan called "Solpa Just Madi," which is
Okay.
that's in Kannada, but what it means is like just adjust a little bit, like
What is that?
it's like
Just a little.
yeah, like just make do, as in it's okay, like doesn't have to be
Doesn't
perfect.
matter.
We'll just
Let go.
we'll just let go and like kind of go with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, thank you so much, and thank you for coming all the way for it, and it was fun. I had a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun. I had a good amount of learnings, and it feels good to connect with someone elder to you, have done a good amount of things
Yeah.
from my age, from my point of view, POV.
Yeah.
But still, there's a lot for you out
No,
there. And
you're on the right track. Just keep keep going, and like I said, this next decade is just all about learning. So you learn as much as possible.
and executing
Yes.
like we work. May soon the 500,000 benchmark
100%.
be achieved.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.